Welcome back to In Focus. We have some good news out of Loudoun County, Virginia. Former Loudoun County School Superintendent Scott Ziegler has been criminally indicted after a report found that he covered up and lied about the sexual assault cases that happened in his schools last year. In case you need a refresher, a boy wearing a skirt raped a girl in a high school bathroom. He was quietly transferred to another school where he went on to do the same thing to a different girl. Ziegler was fired from his position last week, over a year later. And on Monday, he was indicted on 3 misdemeanor counts: false publication, conflict of interest, prohibited conduct, and penalizing an employee for a court appearance. Another indictment was filed against school spokesman Wade Biard for felony perjury. While we're on the topic of false publication, let's not forget this piece from the New York Times back in October of 2021, the New York Times, a former newspaper, where so-called journalist Michelle Goldberg wrote this op-ed titled "The Right's Big Lie About Sexual Assault in Virginia," essentially saying the whole thing was a myth. Fast forward to a year later, turns out they're the ones who lied. Imagine that. Now, this is an ongoing attack. They don't just lie about the stories, they lie about everything. They, as in the blob, the regime. They lie about, in this case, rapes that happened within public schools that superintendents lied about and tried to cover up. Gender-affirming surgeons lie to kids' faces when they say cutting off your genitals is going to make you feel better and make you a happier person. They all lie. They all lie, and it's damaging kids. It's destroying kids. It's driving kids to suicide. I want to bring in Dr. McCollough to discuss this. He's the new author of the book Tomorrow in America, The Battle for the Souls of Our Children. Dr. McCollough, it's great to have you on the program. Really appreciate it. I don't know how closely you followed the Loudoun County incident. I'm glad to see that justice is finally being served. Better late than never. But you know, broadening that out, taking a 30,000-foot view, children in America always seem to be secondary in everything, in the media, in the medical room, you know, talking about abortion. Children are always being put secondary. Their safety, their health, their well-being is never prioritized. Why not?
Well, that's one of the concerns that all of us patriots and parents should have today. You know, when we send our children and our grandchildren to school, we really expect them to be looked after in many, many ways. And it appears as though rather than providing safe havens and places for them to learn about the important things in life, they're being more indoctrinated by some of our teachers and some of the administrative individuals who have other agendas. And it certainly is not in the best interest of our children that their agendas are propagated.
Now, this book that you have, The Battle for the Soul of Our Children, Tomorrow in America, you detail essentially how this country is going to hell in a handbasket, right? How we are losing our nation to what you refer to as this sort of Luciferian globalist government. And I think that's actually a fitting description. A lot of people see that term and they think, you know, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, but it really is what we're seeing in America. It's satanic. Doctor, it's satanic when you think about the drag queens who are stripping for toddlers for cash tips. I think of Project Veritas. They just did an expose of a dean of students at a Chicago private school bragging about handing out sex toys to kids. This push to sexualize, to indoctrinate and abuse our children is nothing but satanic.
Well, it absolutely is. You know, there was a time in our country where evil lived in the shadows. And that no longer is the case. Evil is out front right now. It's everywhere you look. It's in the media. It's in the mainstream media. It's in the news. It's in entertainment, the so-called entertainment industry, in the music industry. Evil is being thrown at us from every way possible. And people will say, well, that's a conspiracy theory. Well, as a scientist, a physician, I know one thing. There's a difference between a theory and reality. As long as something might happen, it can be a theory. But once you can actually see it happen, it becomes a reality. And we're seeing this all around us today. And I've been writing these books for a number of times. I've written 23 books so far. And Tomorrow in America, The Battle for the Souls of Our Children is one of my latest books. And I did that. It's not a fun book to write. It's not a fun book to say things about your country if you love your country, but I can see that our children are really the focus of evil these days. There is a Luciferian movement, a transhumanization movement on a global scale. We must recognize that because, in medicine or anything else, you can't correct it, you can't fix it if you can't identify it and admit that it's there. And it's time for us to wake up and admit that we are literally in a battle for the souls of our children.
And throughout the book, you draw a straight line. You show how everything is connected, how Hollywood and the media and big tech, they're all interconnected. They're all part of the same machine working in lockstep to do this. What do you propose in your book, Doctor, as the solution? How do we get out of this web that society has tangled?
The companion book that I wrote to Tomorrow in America is called When Patriots Rally. And the subtitle of that book is When Patriots Rally is the greatest weapon that we have against all of our enemies, foreign and domestic. And what I mean by that is that patriots have to come out. We've got to come out of the shadows. We've got to be out front. We've got to speak. We've got to let our voices be heard. And we have to tell our children what we want them to hear. And I'll tell you where the title of When Patriots Rally came from. Years ago, I did a lot of traveling early in my career, teaching my profession, plastic surgery, facial plastic surgery, to doctors around the world. And I had an opportunity to go into Germany several years ago, and I'd never met a communist at that time. And so I got to know one of the communist doctors from East Germany, and I asked him one day at lunch, what, if anything, does America's enemies fear or respect about us? And he never hesitated. He looked me in the eye and he said, your ability to rally when your backs are against the wall. Well, if you think about that, if that's what our strength is, we are being attacked from every angle to try to divide us in every way possible, by race, by gender, by religion, by sexual preference, by political parties. Any way you can divide a country right now, we're being divided. And this transgender thing is nothing in the world but Luciferianism in reality. It's no longer conspiracy theory, it is conspiracy reality.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Dr. McCollough, thank you so much for joining the show today. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Everyone go check out this book, Tomorrow in America, The Battle for the Souls of Our Children. Thank you for being here, Doctor.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Absolutely.